have everybody here in our office as part of our regular series of lectures, and we're really very fortunate today to have one of our own as a lecturer in our regular series. Anyway, Mark Bauerlein is a professor, was a sometime professor of English literature at Emory University. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, yeah, well, no, wait a minute. No, I can't talk right now. I'm introducing Mark Bauerlein. Yeah, no, it's a talk. He's going to talk today. And it's a talk on, wait a minute, this is distracting me. Okay, so I'm not sure I can talk right now. Yeah, no, I know, I understand that. But it's Mark Bauerlein, and he teaches at Emory University, and now I'm really having a hard time here. Mark, what's the name of the talk again?
Something about Twitter.
Oh, it's all about Twitter?
We'll send him a text.
Okay, all right, I'll get back to you. So, bye. Faith and Beauty in the Age of Twitter. Please welcome our own Mark Bauerlein.
Thank you. Well, I'm being down the hall all the time. I feel like this is just a conversation. This is an extension of the workday, and I'm actually just going to talk for 15 or 20 minutes, and we'll have the discussion. The topic here, faith, the age of Twitter, obviously applies to all of us. By Twitter, I mean, the whole array of the digital revolution that we're all in the middle of, and still trying to sort out the effects. Every time we understand the effects of one, something new comes along and changes everything. Fortunately, I didn't think about this, but I didn't call it Faith and Beauty in the Age of Tumblr, because Tumblr is right across the hall here. And so when I said to my niece, was out there a while back, I said, yeah, I'm working at this magazine, First Things Now, 17 years old. And she kind of said, yeah. I said, yeah, it's in New York. We have a nice building. And Tumblr's right there. She goes, oh, there we go. Now we're talking prestige here with the young. Anyway, I did a book a few years ago about the digital age and how it does affect the natives, as they're called, and how we really look upon it from the age, my age, and older, and that we're really in as with every revolution, we're in a unique generational moment when we see this division between young people who have grown up with these tools since they were first becoming aware of things, and those of us who come at them after having already grown up in a pre-digital age, and actually time is going by, and soon enough, those of us with the last living memory of the pre-digital times will be gone, and everyone will have been with Google and Facebook and all the other devices and activities. Again, as just part of the world. It's the air that they breathe, and you won't have that living comparison between before and after. If you really want to surprise the youth, just say, when I was your age, there were 5 TV channels. You had to get up and turn the dial. You had something called rabbit ears, and if you touched them in a certain way and moved them, the picture would change. It seems to them another universe, and there really is a new kind of generation gap that has hit, and the way in which it comes off to me in my work as a teacher down at Emory. I teach a lot of freshman courses, and I'm getting students 3 months out of high school. They're still teenagers. And they bring with them, you notice in a freshman composition class that I teach, you notice certain habits and attitudes, typical things that are changing from year to year. And one of the things that I find is you see more traditional kinds of exercises that you would run smoothly in the early 80s, say, the mid 80s. when I started teaching as a graduate student at UCLA. They have a different status now. When you do try to introduce these things to students or get them to practice them in class, you meet not so much resistance or discomfort is too strong a word for it, but a certain inaptitude, a sort of an uncustomary response on their part. And I can give you a few examples. If I'm doing this English course and you read a poem, you say, open your books. Most of them still have books. Some of them do come in with more and more tablets these days. I have a no laptop rule in my class, but I do allow for the reading instrument. Last time I announced no laptops in class, this was a larger survey class. There were about 100 students in that, and a third of the class applauded. So, and I think they have good reason. They don't want to watch the movie on the kid next to them. The screen, it pulls your eyes. I don't want to look at your Facebook page here. I don't want to be distracted. And so they, that was positive reinforcement I got for my tyranny. So but if you open the book, and let's say we've got kind of a dense modernist poem, something by William Carlos Williams or Wallace Stevens. You read the line, "By the road to the contagious hospital." Stevens, the first poem in Spring and All, or the first few lines of Stevens' poem, "The Snowman," Williams's Spring and All, or the first line in The Snowman, "One must have a mind of winter." And you pause at that line. Well, you could read through the whole poem. Stevens' poem, it's one sentence long. It's 6 3-line stanzas. You read through it and then you stop and you say, it's a very dense, nihilistic poem. Well, what's going on here? Okay. Well, what is this poem about? And you pause. Okay. It's something, hands they don't shoot up in the air to answer the question. It's not a simple factual answer kind of question. It's a hard one, right? They're approaching this poem, but you pause, you say nothing. And the seconds tick past. 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 15 seconds, they start getting fidgety, right? The air in the room starts to crackle a little bit. They are uncomfortable with the silence. Right? They're nervous about this. And they actually start to wonder about it. That's one thing. The discomfort with moments of silence in class. Okay? It's different now than it was 20 or 30 years ago. But that's my experience. Another problem, and I'm going to come back to these. Another problem is you read the line, "One must have a mind of winter to regard the frost of the boughs of the pine trees crusted with snow, the spruce is rough." You read the first few lines, and you say, what about that first line? Something stand out. Something about those words. What does that mean? That is problematic for them as well. Stop. These words, zero in on them. Focus. Say something interesting about that line. There's a reason this poem is in this anthology. There's a reason 100 years later we're still reading it. We're talking about it. Why? Something about these words. But that slow down, right? Stop. Look at these words. Say something about their nature, something interesting about it. One must have a mind of winter. I said, actually, I think the most important word in that line is must. And I could say that to them and say, why? Okay? That arrest, right? We're going to stop and focus our attention on these 8 words, 10 words, without going on yet. We're not going to move forward. Right? That is also, it's difficult. for them. At first, somewhat irritating as well. And I think you see why. It is because, obviously, they have had several years of conditioning, of acculturation, that conditions them against those two things. One, the silence, the pause. We're not going to say anything. We're not going to type anything. We're not going to look at anything. We are simply going to try to ponder some words, develop some ideas in silence for a time without trying again to fill it up. And we're not going to move quickly through language. We're going to stop on a word, even a function word like must here. This goes against the habits that they've grooved. Nothing profound here. The habits they've grooved for several years, okay, with this avalanche of words, sounds, images, music, content, buzzing, dinging, that happens all the time in their lives and has since they were 10 years old. Right? Now, these classroom activities, I think, are very important. If I didn't think they were important, I shouldn't be at the podium. Right? I shouldn't be in that room. Okay? When I see the resistance or the inhibition or the lack of habituation to this practice of slowing words down or reducing the cacophony of all times, you see something has gone wrong here. And we begin to look at all the things that have gone on in their lives that have pushed them away from that meditative, contemplative activity. And here's where we get to the increase of the digital age in this worrisome direction for teachers, for mentors, for people who want to cultivate the intellectual talents of the young. And to demonstrate that, you would simply draw upon all the empirical data for this immersion. And the pure numbers themselves are extraordinary. A couple of years ago, the numbers were 85% of 13 to 17-year-olds have a mobile device of some kind. 50% of them get those devices between ages 10 and 12. This is 2-3-year-old data. I'm sure that the age ladder has gone downward and the penetration has gone upward. We're at 90% plus on that. Texting just started actually a few years ago, and texting is a pretty new thing in the life of digital tools. And about 4 or 5 years ago, youths were averaging about 1,700 text messages a month. We're now up to 3,500 text messages a month on average. So more than 100 per day. They still do 250 to 300 phone calls per month to their friends. They are still logging. They log, it varies, about 3 hours of TV time per day. Okay, TV time. TV hasn't gone down as these other screen activities have gone up. Okay? They've simply become simultaneous. Right? Youth, according to Kaiser Foundation, youth run about 9 hours of media time per day in 6 hours of leisure time per day. Okay, they count multiple streams. So you've got the TV on while you're looking at your Facebook page or you're texting. Okay, and most teenagers in America now have a TV in their room, in their bedroom. You add in Instagram. Okay, Instagram has shot upward in popularity. Instagram is now more popular than Facebook for teenagers. It just passed Facebook. And I'll just say 50% of the photos passed by teenagers on Facebook are these, okay, the selfie. Okay? Or actually now we have the poll, as our president has shown us. you've got this this instrument which you can take. So the immersion is massive, right, in young people's lives, and it's international. America is leading the way, but it's international. In China, actually, they now have, in some cities, they have lanes on the sidewalk for texters. Okay, they mark them out on the sidewalks for lanes in China. Heard this on NPR the other day. In London, they've wrapped padding around a lot of the poles. You've heard this because people are bam. Okay, so that they're trying to reduce emergency room visits. So, on that. But America is leading in terms of just the raw volume and immersion on this. And again, the numbers themselves are important. You don't say texting is bad. No, you say that 4,000 text messages a month for many months and years on end is bad. That right there is bad. Why? Well, just for my freshman composition course, what happens is texting is a form of communication, and it grooves bad communication habits. Good communication habits for texting, bad communication habits for composing a paragraph in a reading of a poem, for instance. It grooves one form of communication, and one thing that composition teachers understand is that writing habits are not transferable. Mastering one genre does not mean that you will do another genre well. Writing skills are often localized. So the more you text, the worse you're writing. And the more multitasking you do, the harder it is for you to engage in linear single tasking for a period of time. Okay? For sitting down in a chair and reading a novel for 2 hours without interruption, which is one of the things that you have to be able to do in order to do well in college. In selective colleges at least, you've got complex texts that require focus and concentration. You can't just jump out and then jump back in. That doesn't work. The way at home, or when you're doing high school work, you can have the TV on, and many young people do their homework with the TV on all the time. As one student said to me a while back, look, if I turn the TV off, the silence drives me crazy. So, the silence is uncomfortable. And that this plays into an essay I had a couple of months ago in First Things about the importance of silence. This gets into the first topic in my talk, the importance of silence and solitude in the act of faith. And in that essay, I just took some examples from the Gospels when Jesus has to withdraw. Right? I have to go off and be by myself. Yes, faith is communal, but there has to be some moments in which you are alone with God. Right? The model is there. It is stated explicitly, and we have the phrase. Right? We were talking about a Henry James novel over lunch today, the American, when the lead character in that book, bad things happen to him in Paris, and he, at the end of the novel, he's secular, he has no religion, but he just wants to, he's got to get away from something and get some resolution. He walks around and he goes into Notre Dame, and he enters what James calls the splendid dimness, and he goes in and sits down, and the phrase is, he was out of the world. Right? He was out, and he has to get out of the world for a time. He's not going in to pray. But he said, everything going on has to stop. I need somewhere to go in order to settle myself. Right? With these tools, it is possible never to get out of the world. You're always in the world. You're always connected. And with the peer pressure that goes along with these tools for teenagers, okay, to get away from these tools is nerve-wracking. Right? Pew Research finds that close to 80% of teenagers at least sometimes sleep with the cell phone under the pillow or right next to the bed in the on position. Right? If something comes through at 2 o'clock in the morning, they want to be awake. They want to know what is passing. And so when you add up all the pictures and the messages, then we have multiple times during the night that these interruptions occur. So you can't multitask and put prayer in the menu. Right? You can't do that. If you can't put the world, lay the world aside, then the acts of faith, I mean, yes, in church together is communal, but again, there has to be times of solitude. And when I see young people walking, I see them. They leave class. Right? They walk across the quad. First thing they have to do is check in. Right? They've been out of the network for an hour, and they have to see what's going on. They do not have joy or calm on their faces. They've been away. Messages have piled up. Images may be in there. People may be meeting somewhere. Okay, this is the pace of contact. And so I see uncertainty, consternation could be too strong a word, but just I don't know where I stand right now. Is everyone meeting somewhere? Some new, breakup has occurred. Something, social stuff happens in college. All kinds of social issues are constantly circulating. So to get away, to be alone, to stop. Don't reach in there. Leave it alone. Give yourself 10 more minutes just to walk. That is, again, that's an uncustomary action on their part. If you can't do that, again, then I think the practices of faith are hindered. Okay? Now, the beauty part, and then I'll stop and open it up to a discussion. The registration of beauty requires precisely the focused, fixed attention on an object. You have to look at the thing. You have to hear the thing. You have to smell, taste. Those can become aesthetic experiences as well. If you're fine wine, you examine it, you contemplate it, you think about it, you compare it to your own knowledge. You say, that's wonderful. Oh, that's beautiful. That's great. Or you're walking through the museum, and what is the aesthetic moment? You walk through, and the painting, it grabs you. It seizes you for a moment. Your attention is drawn to it, and at first you're not even quite sure why. Right? You say, oh, that's beautiful. And that's pretty much all you can say for the moment. Right? It grips. You can't say, I'm going to judge that poem as beautiful. The will often doesn't have much to do with this process. The thing to do, the thing about this is, when you're reading that poem, you have to slow down. Beauty can't happen really fast. Right? And your attention has to be absorbed on the thing. You can't register the beauty of the painting while you're in the middle of a phone conversation with someone else. And so the apprehension of beauty, and proceed to discuss it, at first has to be the object of, again, focused, direct, fully taking in, right, the object. Right? You can't be distracted right, at the time. I mean, this was the idea of the museum. You enter the museum, it's a place for contemplation, right? Those big edifices, right? Contemplation, think about the etymology of that word, temple, right? People can't talk loud in a museum, right? That interrupts the experience. Okay? They can't look at the painting and run to the wall text. Right? So often, nope. First, look at the object, the painting, the space, the color, the arrangement, right? Light and shadow, things like this. Okay? That takes a training for the mind to be able to do that. Okay? You hear a great work of music, someone has to say, oh, now stop, now listen to this. Listen to this. And you listen to it again and again, and then you train your eye, your ear, you train your nose for food or wine to hear, to sense it. Okay? But it is a direct contact with the object. Right? And you have to drain yourself a little bit. This is the famous Kantian disinterestedness. Right? You can't bring too many ideas, attitudes, your own condition, too much to the object. You've got to be open. You have to have, Coleridge called it, suspension or aesthetic distance, which means if you're really, really hungry, a museum isn't going to work very well. Okay. If you're really, really thirsty, you don't care if it's a Latour 1961 or if it's last year's Ripple. Okay, you're just thirsty, right? Those conditions hinder the aesthetic experience. So you have to sort of lower your subjectivity a little bit. Too many of the digital tools raise it up. Okay? They crowd out, they distract, they divert, they accelerate, they make you seek stimulation. Okay? You look for the words and images that can pour back and forth. If you want to go stand behind the 20-year-olds at the computers in the library, see how quickly those pages flash by when they're racing through the web. So what we need to do, I'll wrap this up here, is more and more, those of us who are training, educating the young, we need to take this into account more and more. And we need to cultivate the habits against all of the acculturation they get in their youth lives, their popular lives. Leo Strauss once said, liberal education is the antidote to mass culture. We need to look, part of at least our education is the antidote to youth digital culture. So what we do is like I do, I make students write their papers out by hand. Okay, they can't type them. They have to write them out by hand. I prefer cursive, I tell them. And they think it's crazy. And I go with it. I give them a crazy look. I don't care. So, but if I didn't get good feedback over time on this, then over the semester, then I wouldn't do this. Or if all my colleagues were doing this, I wouldn't do it. Okay. So what? Part of it's countercultural training taking place. So I make students memorize poems. Is there any language processing slower than memorization? Right? Memorizing poems. They hate it. They hate memory. It's painful. It is absolutely. And then they have to stand up in front of the class and recite the poem. And sometimes they'll forget a line, and I'll say, "Stop! No one help." Right? Okay. I'll work on it. And they're agonizing, but they often work their way through it. When they finish, the glow, right? The accomplishment. They feel proud of themselves for having done that, and they go sit down. But those are the kinds of things that we have to take into account that we didn't have to take into account 30 years ago as educators. We have to build in exercises, assignments that are going to reverse the habituation that their other digital lives inculcate. Slow down, more silence, right? More fixed attention on one single object. Okay? That's simply, I'd say that to parents as well. And that developing these skills is countercultural to their peer lives, their social lives. These skills are actually fully transferable to the workplaces that most of them are going to enter as well. These old 19th century skills have to be developed for them to survive in these 21st century workplaces. And for example, just reading something and writing a one-page summary of it. I don't want your ideas. I don't want your creativity. I don't want your opinion. Simply summarize it. This is what you're going to have to do if you go into business, if you go into science, if you go into education. It happens all the time. So anyway, I'll stop there. And I think I went longer than 20 minutes. It's a professional.